In this case, SWP strategy wins over simple two bucket strategy. I would encourage you to go ahead and run this. Hey guys, welcome to Personal Finance, and today we are going to discuss about bucketing strategy. Right? I was watching a couple of videos on YouTube, and one of the financial planners video, they showed that okay, they don't too much believe in SWP and safe withdrawal rates. They don't want to give a number to it, and they said okay, fine, we would rather have a strategy of bucketing. So I thought, okay, fine, we have a calculator, and let me modify that calculator for a bucketing strategy, simple bucketing strategy calculator. And of course, I plan to build many more strategies into this calculator, and you are welcome to give me suggestions in terms of what strategies do you want in here. But today I'm going to bring you a very simple two bucket strategy. But before that, let's try to compare what is SWP strategy and what is a bucketing strategy. Now, uh, we'll talk about SWP first. The calculators that we already have, we have given multiple Excel files to all our subscribers. In case you have not got the calculator, please do email us, and we will be happy to give you the calculator that we have built. Right. So, coming to what we are doing with SWP, what is the core focus of SWP is that it's a systematic withdrawal from a diversified portfolio. That is where you hear the term safe withdrawal rate, right? So you have a portfolio, you withdraw a percentage of your portfolio adjusted to inflation every year on year. And of course, in few of the years, regularly, you keep rebalancing your portfolio, right? That is what is a systematic withdrawal plan from a given portfolio, right? The major risk in this withdrawal and in this retirement planning is that sequence of returns risk is a risk which is that what if in the initial years of retirement the market falls, the equity portfolio falls by an amount which was never planned by you, say negative 15%, negative 10%, negative 20%. In the recent case, just in a month, we have seen market fall by negative 10%, right? So if this happens, right, if this happens, then your SWP retirement planning strategy might have certain risks. So for systematic withdrawal plan strategies, right, uh, it is meant for somebody who can take a little bit of risk, or simpler strategies for retirement, right? Generally SWPs are simpler to implement and also monitor, right? They don't have too much complications in terms of how do we monitor the entire retirement withdrawal during the retirement phase, right? But so this is meant for somebody who has a little bit of higher risk tolerance, in my view, right? So just to have a quick recap of about SWP, it's a systematic withdrawal from a diversified portfolio that you have designed, like the way we have seen our calculators, 50-50-50, 40-60 sort of thing when we begin retirement phase. And of course, this has something called as a sequence of returns risk. Now, if we talk about a bucketing strategy, the bucketing strategy, as the name suggests, there are buckets, right? What does bucket mean? There are short term buckets and long term buckets, or medium term, or whatever term you want to call it, right? So, what you do is in the initial phase of retirement, right, for short term goals, like for example, if you're talking only about retirement, then 3 to 5 years expense or 5 to 7 years expense, you keep it in a debt portfolio, right? So typically when you go and search on Google, or you go ahead and talk to any financial planner, what they will be talking about is that 3 to 5 years expense, you keep it in a savings like a FD or high yield savings bonds, and things like that. So The sequence of returns risk is minimized in this particular thing, right? Hope you understand. So it has a reduced sequence of returns risk. So you have let your equity grow by 5 to 7 years, and in the meanwhile you are withdrawing it from a short term bucket. I hope I'm making sense. And of course, there is a lot of maintenance required in this bucketing strategy. And the maintenance is your time, your energy, your focus, and of course, your financial planner's time, energy, and focus in terms of how do you move from mid to short, right? A mid-term bucket to short-term bucket, a long-term bucket to mid-term bucket. How you make that transition, right? What are those strategies that you will employ in making those movements from mid-term to short-term and long-term to mid-term? So here, what we present is a comparison using our calculators, using a very basic two bucket strategies. Now, please be patient as we go along in this 2 to 3 months. I'll be bringing you a detailed calculator where you can design your own strategies. Yes, you can make your own strategies. The tool will help you the way you want to strategize. You can strategize, and the tool will give you the exact uh, probabilities, right? The confidence that we keep calling of the corpus will last for how long. So in our calculations today, again, we are only talking about retirement. The other goals, be it education, be it kids marriage, be it home, be it whatever, like international travels, we are not considering. We're only talking about retirement. We are not talking about any corpus growth. We are talking about whether this given corpus is sufficient for retirement alone. And we're talking about two strategies. We're talking about SWP and we're talking about bucketing. Quickly, what we're trying to see here is a two bucket strategy before we jump into the calculator. A two bucket strategy is very simple. The bucket one, the first bucket, is a short term bucket where we are considering a 7 years expense in your debt account. Why 7 years? Why not 3 years? Why not 5 years? Because you have entered retirement. Very simple case that we are discussing is you have entered retirement. That's all. Okay, so you put your money in a safer place where it won't quick it's not that aggressive in terms of returns, and of course in the meanwhile it is also not going to fall so much, right? Whether be it FD or whatever, right? It's fixed. So will it give a inflation, will it beat inflation? Will this bucket one where you have invested, will it beat inflation? uh, we don't know, right? It might be just short of inflation, or it might beat inflation by a 0.5%. We are considering a Monte Carlo in this case for inflation, right? And the bucket two in our two bucket strategy is a long term bucket, right? So we hope you understood that SWP is has a sequence of returns risk and a higher sequence of returns risk, and the bucketing strategy has a lower, because initially you'll be withdrawing for debt from debt bucket, initial short term buckets, and then you let your equity grow, and from then on you will try to rebalance from long term bucket to short term bucket and things like that, right? So we are considering two bucket as I explained, and now we will jump to our calculator and see how this two bucket strategy works, and we're going to compare in the same calculator. We're going to compare SWP versus a two bucket strategy. Again, please be patient. In the coming days, I'm going to make a tool where you can design your own strategies and then check whether the corpus lasts retirement cycle of yours. Okay, so let's jump to the calculator and have a look, and let's see whether this makes sense for most of you. Okay, so here is the calculator that we already have, and we I have just mentioned here in little details, right, what our consideration for taxes and strategies are. So we can just read this once. So just a reminder for this tax consideration, in this demo calculator, what we have used is LTCG, long-term capital gain tax, as 12.5%, which is increasing every 3 years by 2.5%. till 30 years, 30%, right? That's what our strategy for tax will be for LTCG. And for a fixed or debt asset tax, what we have given is a choice to the user. They can use either 0%, 10%, 15%, or 20%. We generally take 15% tax for LTCG, and that's what we believe should be good for considering for a fixed or debt asset tax, right? 15% for fixed or a debt asset tax. Right now it is like 20% if you're quickly selling. For FDs it is coming in salary slab and all those things, but average I would say we should consider about 15% tax, and that's what we are here. So earlier whatever calculators we have shared was only SWP strategy. So for SWP strategy, what we were using, and this is very very important, please have careful listen to what I'm saying. For a SWP strategy, we assume that the initial equity proportion, right, is what we give here, right? 50%, and remaining 50% is debt. We can make it 60, we can make it 40, we can make it 70, we can make whatever we want. And every 5 years we are rebalancing it. That means whatever you give here, say if you give 50, every 5 years it reduces by 10%, and it limits itself to 10% during retirement years, right? Every 5 years there is a rebalancing happening, and I'll show you quickly for SWP. So just a quick recap of SWP. If you scroll down here, right now I have just made one simulation only, one number of simulation. So if I just go to SWP strategy, right here you can see this all equity returns is Monte Carlo, right? It's Monte Carlo. Inflation also is Monte Carlo, right? Fixed tax and long-term tax, all these things are as I mentioned earlier. And since it's 50-50, you can see for a 5 crore corpus here, right? This is a 5 crore corpus and a 9 lakh expense for a 45-year-old who wants to retire today. Since 50 percentage we have kept, so this is 50% here of 5 crores is 2.5 crores, and 50% here of 2.5 crores of debt, right? And then if you can see here, equity, it's all random based on Monte Carlo, right? It's all random here. And even debt is random based on what? Based on these parameters of inflation and standard deviation, right? So I've considered inflation as 7%, standard deviation as 2%, and so 2, and it just keeps changing, varying based on things. So for example, if I just press again, it's again random. If you see here, first 2 years it's showing 12.5% equity returns, but if I just again randomize it, again it becomes 11.4, 12.5. If I randomize it further, and there are negative returns coming, negative 20%, negative 16%, right? All those things returns for equity, and also debt also is changing. This is SWP strategy, and since this is one, you can generally run it for 500 cycles. At 500 cycles, when you run it, at this particular place, you will be getting at what age, at what confidence we are getting. For example, I would recommend that you consider 75% confidence or 80% confidence in running SWP strategy, right? Now, coming to the crux of this video. Now, if you talk about this, we also have something called as a 2-bucket strategy here, right? In the same thing. Now, this is what is important. What we are doing in 2-bucket strategy is very simple. Now, if you think about this very carefully, what we are doing is a typical 2-bucket strategy is that, okay, your first bucket is going to have a debt fund for about 5, 6, 7 or 3 to 5 years. And then you are going to move periodically from equity, that is from your second bucket, you are periodically going to move funds in your debt, right? That is high liquid funds, right? You are going to move that funds from one long-term bucket to short-term bucket. That's what the concept is, right? So we have just tweaked that concept a little bit. Instead of you moving every year or every 2 years the funds from your equity to debt, and then you move the equity to debt and again withdraw from debt, what we have used as strategy here is that we have used 2 buckets, but initial allocation of debt we have taken 7 times the current annual expense. That means at least 7 years of annual expense you have in your short-term bucket. Okay. Now, post that, what we do is our strategy is very simple. If equity return is greater than debt return, if equity return of that year is greater than debt return of that year, right, we withdraw that year's annual expense from equity. Understood? Instead of moving it to debt, and then we withdraw it from the equity. Okay, instead of moving funds to debt and then withdrawing from debt. That's our philosophy right now in the strategy. Simple strategy, right? It's an alternate refill strategy. Else, if it is not, that means equity returns is less than debt returns. That means it is negative or it is zero. Our strategy is very simple. We take a balanced approach of 50-50 withdrawal. That means from equity and debt. And if equity corpus is less than withdrawal, that means you don't have anything left in equity corpus, right? We take 100% withdrawal from debt. And if debt corpus is exhausted, 100% of the amount is shifted to equity. Now, if this is confusing, just let's run one cycle, right? I have just pressed this button here and I'm running one cycle here. If you see here, a rebalancing happening here. Why it is happening rebalancing? Because, right, debt return is 8.2%, 6.8% rebalancing happening here because debt return is greater than equity return, right? And why rebalancing not happening here? Because equity return is more than debt return. That is why the target equity contribution of percentage is 100%. 100% I am withdrawing from equity. Okay, so if you see here, total tax you wanted for this year 11 lakh rupees as annual expense in 2028, you have to withdraw 13 lakh rupees and entire 13 lakh rupees is going to be withdrawn from equity. So this is just few cycles, right? So you have to run this completely for say 500 cycles here. The moment you make 500 cycles here, right, this will run Monte Carlo for inflation, Monte Carlo for equity returns, Monte Carlo for debt returns. And hence you can find totally, you can find till what time frame that your corpus will be exhausted. Okay, I hope it's clear. Now in this strategy could be different, that there could be n number of strategies. In fact, there are hundreds and hundreds of strategies that you can apply here in simple two bucket, right? What I mean is, in simple two bucket strategies, you can simply apply that. No, Ravi, I don't want these things. What I want is you just keep refilling your debt every year, or only when the equity is greater than debt, you keep refilling it, right? That could be one strategy. Somebody might say, I don't want 50-50 withdrawal from equity and debt. You refill only if equity is higher than the mean that we have submitted, right? We can go ahead and check n number of things. So what I'm planning is, you can play with this calculator for time being, right? What I'm planning is, I'm planning to make a tool, similar tool that you are seeing right now, so that you can design your own strategies. That will be the best thing. And that will be probably the final calculator that you guys can use to determine what is that amount that one needs. I also plan to incorporate some sort of machine learning, some sort of AI into it, in terms of running multiple simulations in terms of what strategy suits. What strategy is largely available in the market, we'll apply that and we'll see what strategy suits for a particular need. But in this case, if I just run, I will leave it to you to run this calculator for you. And in this case, SWP strategy wins over simple two bucket strategy. I would encourage you to go ahead and run this. It's already live, and you can just play with this calculator for some time and let me know if you have a strategy which is quite interesting, right? In a two bucket strategy, let me know. I will incorporate that in the list of strategies that I'm going to bring it to you in coming weeks, and then we can discuss. So that's what I want to talk to you about in this video. I hope this is clear to you. Just play with this calculator. First, just run it as is, and you can just check one cash flow statement and understand how this entire rebalancing and what these elements are. If you are having doubt, do email me and I will respond to you quickly, or you can also put a comment on YouTube. And if you want detailed calculators, they're all free. The email is scrolling below, and you can just put me an email and I will share the calculators, Excel calculators, to you for free, completely for free. I do not believe that anybody should charge anything, at least for calculators, right? For advice, yes, you should go ahead and pay your financial planners, but not for calculators, for heaven's sake. You should not be paying anything. So all these are free for you as a tool. Eventually, I'm going to move these things to GitHub, and wherein GitHub, where people can contribute to this calculator, and we all can benefit from a community building in terms of calculator. So that's what it is for today's video, and thank you so much for being with me. If you are till here there, thank you so much for being, and happy financial planning.